And we
I
can get
did want
started.
to ask you, I can record my audio separately if you want me to send that to you after so you have a cleaner track than
Yeah, man.
Zoom.
Sometimes that's necessary. I used to say no, like I would do it all just myself, but internet issues, sometimes that's helpful. So do it and do it just in case if it's not a hassle.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. All right, I'm recording on my end.
Awesome. And why don't we get started by just introduce yourself and tell people what you do for a living when you're ready.
Oh, I'm the intro. Okay.
Yeah, is that all right?
That's terrifying, but I can do it. Well, hi. I am Anthony Natarelli. I am a comedian and actor and Uber Eats driver and freelance videographer and editor. If it makes me some money so I can do stand up and act, I do it. So
Yeah,
you
yeah, I
might
do.
find me on some other website soon if it comes to that.
I'm also not opposed to other websites as well. I do the same thing. Like I have a job just so that I can do the things that I love. It's not necessarily like, oh, I'm very passionate about,
Well, you have
making
to anymore. Like you can't just do the fun thing. You have to have like nine other jobs to make the fun thing possible.
yeah, yeah, that's funny. We met at an open mic, and you had a pretty amazing poop story, which we'll get to eventually. But that's that's how we became friends. Let's talk a little bit about stand up, man. I'm curious how you got into it. How long have you been doing stand up?
So I've been doing stand up off and on for about 6 years now, which is wild to think about. Like I said, I'm also an actor, so doing theater and in a small town. I'm from the Midwest. We didn't have like a big market where I'm at. So when you're doing stand up and doing community theater, which is mostly what we had, those take up the same time slots. So it's all nights. So you can't do both at the same time. So I've had to kind of go back and forth between doing them. Since things have started opening back up, I've been really focused on the stand up side of things. And since getting out west, that's kind of been the focus. 'Cause that's like part of like how we met. I was on my road trip moving to LA. So I was just hitting open mics. I was Googling open mics every night. Like, okay, what city am I stopping in today? Didn't have hotels planned or anything. Just I hit Denver to meet up with some friends. And then I was like, I'm going to Google open mics from here to LA and start making stops.
Nice, man. Yeah, you did really good. You seemed really polished. This is the reason why I asked like how long you were doing it. I just had I I'll often I kind of have like volcano comedy. Like I'll let things build up and then finally I can't take it. I'm like, I gotta do a couple of mics. So and I'm constantly like writing down stupid shit and then trying to make that work.
No, that's
Um,
definitely like when I was doing the theater stuff. It would hit that point of like I can't do any more shows. I have to start doing stand up again. I can't keep not doing stand up.
yeah, it's rough out there, man. Good on you for getting out of the Midwest and going like right to the epicenter of where things are happening.
Oh, it feels so good. It feels so good to be out of the Midwest. Things have not gone anywhere near to plan since I got out here. That's part of like why this took us so long to schedule this, is it has been such a clusterfuck since I got here. Like I
Yeah.
drove out, had a place in mind, got here, found out, nope, that place not an option. And I've still not gotten into a permanent place. So like, it is still not solved. It's been like almost 3 months and I'm just still dealing with it. But I'm hitting mics and I'm having fun and doing the stuff. So I'd still rather be here and a few steps away from homeless than in the Midwest doing the
Oh,
same things I've always been doing.
totally, man. That's that's like happiness. That's my dream, is like just on the brink of I don't know, just on
Like
the brink of
like
hobo.
right on the edge of everything completely falling apart, but not quite there.
It's a weird feeling too. Like you're so it's okay. Tell me if this resonates with you. Like I'm so motivated to do like theater, for instance, podcasting, jokes. I've got a little like comic strip that I do on the side also. And then I do the thing that makes me money, but it feels like I'm working so much, like I'm so incredibly busy and but still absolutely like 100% like on the brink of one minor disaster just like bankrupting me.
Oh, all the time. All the time. There's never a day where I'm like I have to check my bank account every morning like did I fuck up at some point and I have no money left? Because it does.
Yeah.
It feels like you're never at rest. So you
Uh-huh.
feel like you should be secure, and then you look at things, you're like, I'm so far away from being secure.
Can't anything like make me money? Yeah, I know. I look at this podcast all the time. Like, this is costing me money. This is
Right?
ridiculous.
Well, it's the same
Why
same
am
thing with open mics.
Yeah.
Like open mics out here. That was like the biggest shock to me going from the Midwest to coming out here, because the Midwest, you every night you can hit a mic if you want to. Might have to drive a ways, but you can find one and it's free. You go up, do your set, hang out with some people, whatever. Out here, like every mic that I've found, it's either a lottery, so you don't even know if you're getting up, or you're paying to do it. It's a pay to play mic. You're paying five
Oh,
dollars for 5 minutes. Same thing in Phoenix. When I've left Santa Fe, hit Phoenix the next night. It was a $5 for 5 minutes, like $7 for 10 type thing. And it's like it's cool, I guess, because you're like guaranteed a slot, but
mm,
it's immediately become that like juggle of, okay, I need to make sure if I'm doing those, that's when I'm working something for a show. Like if I'm paying you money to do this set, I need to make sure that this is a set that I'm keeping. This isn't workshopping anymore. This is,
yeah.
how does this all work together? And then finding those like lottery mics is very much like the really nitty gritty. Like, okay, look, this is all really fresh stuff that needs to be worked through. Some of it's not even jokes yet, but I need to say it to know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's funny. Go
yeah,
ahead.
it's just, it's like a freedom that you don't have out here, that I had a lot in the Midwest. There was mics that I had specifically that were mics, where I would go up with just these ideas, and I'd be like, I'll see if I can get 5 minutes riffing on this. And that's such a risk out here to
Yeah.
do that when it's so hard to get time.
Yeah. I've also had to compete for like mic time where it's like, you might not go up. I don't know, man. And you're there all night. Like it's a total dedication of your time.
Yeah.
And then you feel obligated to like, let me buy a beer. I'm just kind of like sitting here and nurse this for hopefully 2 hours.
Right.
But yeah, it's like, I don't know, that your time is super valuable, but it's something that you have to go up. It helps, for me at least, it helps. There are jokes that I'll write that I'm like, this is pretty funny. And then I'll get up there and I'm like, the beginning, like the setup was really funny. And then the punch line fell super
Right.
short. Maybe I should work on like the first part. Like the crowd will reveal things to me sometimes of like, that's too long of a joke, or like, you need to make that shorter. So I think that it's super important to get up there and do mics. But like you said, man, that you put that really well. If this isn't for an actual show, I shouldn't be spending money on it. I shouldn't be
Right, because
spending.
you'll burn through it so fast and you'll get frustrated. Like, I think that's one of the things that with any art form that people don't think about, is the way that you use your time is so important to how you feel about what you're doing. Like, if you are wasting your time, or wasting your money in a way that you're not getting anything back from it, you will burn out so fast. So like as soon as I saw that, like, okay, I know these mics are all paid mics, I was like, okay, I have to save those. Like I can occasionally, if I've got some stuff that I like, okay, I really, really want to test this 5 minutes, even if I don't have a show coming up, then yeah, I can go do that. But if I'm doing it every night, that it just becomes a stress on your mind constantly of like, am I getting anything out of this? Am I wasting money doing this? Am I wasting my time doing this? It's like, you can't let that kind of doubt live on you constantly.
Yeah, man. What's your joke writing process look like? Is it just like whenever it hits you, you write something down, you dedicate time in the morning?
I definitely don't dedicate a time. Like I've tried that and it's
Yeah.
just, it so does not work for me. I know people that are like, no, you have to. You have to just like sit and like write for like 2 hours. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's awesome. But when I try it, I just stare at a notebook for 2 hours and I'm like, I got nothing out of this. And even when I have an idea, I'll sit and do that. And I'm like, this is such a pain in the ass. But
Yeah.
it's very much um like I write down a lot of ideas and I kind of like broad strokes it. And then as I'm working through those, I'll start coming up with like a tag here and there. And if it's something where I've got a more built idea, I will try to find a mic where I can riff on that a little bit. I do a lot of riffing in my writing process, which I've been told is like a big don't do that, but like it works for me.
Yeah.
It lets me know if the path that I was going on with it is actually worth going down, as opposed to like, 'cause I've done the thing where like you sit and write out like pages word for word verbatim jokes, and like sometimes those work, but I feel very trapped in it if I do that. So by loosening it up, and letting myself riff on it and have some fun with it, not only do I get to explore some places that I maybe wouldn't have gone just writing it all down right away, but it also lets me know if the audience likes it or doesn't, and it builds in exit points because I've got these places where I know I'm going to riff. Those work really well as escapes if the audience is not on board. So
Yeah.
it sort of builds in those traps where, like, okay, if I know the audience isn't on board for this topic, like if this bit about the section of this bit starts off with me saying, I know not all kidnappers are good people. Uh, and it's a very 50-50 if an audience wants to go down that path with me. It's a very fun journey, but that opening line is a very line in the sand moment with some audiences.
Yeah.
And if
I've
they're
got
not there for it, I've got one or two lines before I hit a riff point. I can jump out of there and hit some other material and get them back with me.
I've got a similar joke of out of all the slaves out there, a sex slave seems like the most like, and then if people like sex slave, and then I can kind of riff off of that, like go one way or the, but if everybody's like, oh fuck, like oh my god,
Yeah.
and if that falls short, then I know like okay, quickly go to the next joke.
Well, because there's those words. There's those quick words that like people hear it. Like as soon as you said slave, even me, I was like, "Where's this going?
Oh shit!
Like, let's hear where this is gonna go. Do I need to get me off of this podcast?"
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah,
there's those buzzwords that an audience hears, and you have to very quickly get them on board with you.
yeah, yeah,
Or you'll just know that that's not the thing that they're in for. Maybe they just have no interest in going down that path with you, and that's fine. You have to be able to adjust.
yeah, yeah. It's funny, man. It's funny. It's such a fleeting thing too. It's like one night that works, and other nights it's like, no,
Mhm.
that's you go get off. You like hit the mute button, get off the Zoom call, exit immediately.
Oh, there's a bad connection. Alt F4,
Yeah.
Alt F4.
We talked a little bit about the writing process. Do you have any heroes or like people that you look up to specifically? Jerry Seinfeld's always been like, I don't know. He seems like he does it. He encapsulates it so like wholesomely, and then the TV show and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things I look up to him as far as guidance goes. One of them being like the writing process. I tried the sitting down and just he does an X. Like yes, I sat down and I showed up to write. I didn't write anything down, but a red X for that day. I did show up for the writing process, and then I found out yeah that doesn't work for me. But I look up to him in other ways. Are there heroes like that for you, or like people that you look up to in the stand-up world that
Yeah,
resonates?
it's kind of always a fluid thing for me, because like I don't think people realize how long in stand up it takes you to kind of figure out who you are as a comedian. Like when I started, because I started in what was that 2018? No, before that. God, math is hard. I'm 27. I started 6 years ago. It's 2021. So 2015 is when I started. I have to show my work and then I can figure it out. It's like eighth grade math all over again. Uh, but when I first started, I grew up with like very like edgy comics, like Dane Cook and like Louis C.K., Nick Swardson, Daniel Tosh, Anthony Jeselnik, like a lot of those guys. And like I wanted to be that. Like that I was like, if the audience doesn't like my stuff, then that's their problem. Like that very much what everyone is very mad about right now, like very specifically right now. But it had to be a fluid thing because like you very quickly realize like, well, those guys got to do that because of one, when they came up in comedy and like how long they had been doing it at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and also it's a very lonely thing to do that kind of comedy because you very often are alienating your audience. So it had to shift. And over the years, there's been a ton of comics that I've met that like people have probably not heard of, just because they're like small time touring guys that were doing road shows. For a while when I was in the Midwest, a lot of what I did was booking road comics for shows. And a bunch of those guys are super inspiring. Dan Alton is fantastic. If you want to look him up, I could give you a list of them. Then you'd have to like remember and go Facebook them later.
Yeah.
But they're all so good. One that I got to work with that there are some bigger names, and I worked with them on a festival a few years ago. Dan Saint Germain is super cool guy, really really great. It's weird. He's like a very contemporary comic, but it's like a lesson in old school writing watching him. Like
Yeah.
he's got such this like classic style to it, but he doesn't let that feel old. And it's very fun to watch. And then another one that was on that show is Dusty Slay. If you're not watching Dusty Slay, start now because he's
Okay.
incredible. He's so funny. Uh, he's got all the, like, he works his mannerisms, his natural mannerisms into the bit so well that it seems like an act. And then you
Yeah.
talk to him after a show, you're like, no, this is just you, and you're killing it, and it's amazing. He's such a cool guy.
Yeah.
Some bigger stuff, bigger names that like people can see on Netflix's stuff. Rory Scovel has been a huge inspiration of mine for a few years now. Nate Bargatze,
Yeah.
love Nate Bargatze's stuff. Um, I kind of, if I had to describe my stand up as like a mishmash of comics, it would probably, like, the two biggest inspirations right now would have to be like Rory Scovel's all over the place and like improv and riffing, combined with like Bargatze's storytelling, which
Yeah.
makes it a very weird mashup of just like all over the place stories. But you've seen it. It's even that 5 minutes. That's very much what my set was. It's like 5 minutes of very disconnected but somehow storied
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, man. I hate that question, by the way, when people are like, "What's okay? You do
Oh,
comedy, then
it's the worst, and I hate you for asking it. I knew it was coming today. I was like, I don't know what we're gonna talk about mostly, but he knows me from stand-up, so it'll probably be that, and he's probably gonna ask who I like the most, or like who's my inspiration.
I just thought like maybe I meant to like kind of form it kind of like George Carlin in the way that he does like intertwines philosophy has like motivated me to do this other thing over here, or not comedy at all, but I really like when I read Goosebumps as a kid, like I kind of
Oh,
like
for
the
sure, yeah. And then I just listed off comedians at you,
and
and
then you
told you to go do work.
You answered in the way that I like hate. You turned into the question that I hate. So sorry about that.
No, it's
sorry
fine.
sorry to put that up.
I will say there are some comics that like I was not super into their stand up initially, but then watching them in interviews, a great example is Roy Wood Jr. I only knew him from The Daily Show, and The Daily Show is great. I love The Daily Show, but it's like it doesn't give you a good feel of like a comedian because you only see them in the like short bits and stuff, and it's like, oh, that was funny, and then they're gone. He is like the biggest genius of comedy.
Yeah.
I listened to him on a podcast called "Let's Talk About Sets," where they deep dive comedy specifically, and the man is insanely smart. Like he was pulling off these like big brain moves. So there's a quick story. I don't want to tell the whole thing because it's his story,
Oh,
not mine. But he talks about trying to get his first feature set on the road, and he needed a 30-minute video. And he couldn't get a 30-minute set anywhere because he didn't have a 30-minute video. So he was hosting a show and he recorded himself every night in the same clothes so he could cut it together later and make it look like a 30-minute set. And I'm like, that's
nice.
such a big brain
Yeah.
genius move. And
Yeah.
like the dude's stand up is hilarious. And then you throw that kind of stuff on top. It's like, dude, how are you not the biggest name in comedy? It's
Yeah,
insane.
man. Yeah, that's super impressive. I love.
So there, I worked it out a little bit of into something that isn't just, I like to tell jokes like this.
Were you always like a class clown, like growing up?
Oh
What was
yeah.
the?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a given. What was the thing that like pushed you to do stand up in the first place? It's kind of like a big bold move, and a lot of people have come to realize they're in this like dark place, and they're like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna fucking do an open mic and see what happens." Was there anything like that for you?
So I don't know if you noticed that I immediately reacted with the big grin when you asked that question, but
Yeah.
so I kind of always wanted to do stand up since I was like 12. I've been watching a lot of stand up at that point. That was like when I first started. That's when I stopped skipping Comedy Central Presents. Because like there was a point every kid, like if they were watching Comedy Central or anything like that would come on and you're like, I don't want to watch this. And there was that weird switch where I was like, okay, I'll sit and watch these. And like I fell in love with stand up and I've been wanting to do it forever. The thing that pushed me into it was a church talent show. And I was like, I'm doing stand up for the first time on this talent show. That was a terrible idea. I was 16. I thought that I had it. I was like, I've been watching stand up for years. I'm going to kill it. Went out there, bombed so hard, only had like a minute of material. Thought that I had like 10 that I could just go up and like riff for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Had like a minute. I don't remember any of the jokes that I told except for one. And I don't even remember what the whole joke was. I just remember the premise had something to do with the bird from Cocoa Puffs. And that was like that was my closer, and it didn't land. was such a miserable experience, and I didn't do it again for 5 years.
Yeah.
Uh, not totally because of how bad that was. We ended up, I did the church talent show again the next year and won it with sketch writing. So like I did learn from it, but the bigger issue was just I couldn't get stage time after that.
Yeah.
Every open mic at home was a bar. Like, and I was under 21, and then I was 21, started doing stand up, and my friend of mine, Austin Black, who you should also look up, he's very funny. He's a Denver comic. Um, he was just starting out, and he was like 16, 17, I think, when we met. And he was in these bar shows, and I'm like, what the fuck? How come I couldn't do this when I was 16? I would have
Yeah.
loved to be doing these bar shows instead of having to like censor myself for a church. It's probably a very good thing I didn't keep doing stand up at 16, because that was like peak edgelord, and I got a couple years to kind of dial that back before I started hitting the stage a lot.
Yeah. um, do you? What's the? This is, we're gonna shift gears real fast because I'm
Yeah.
curious, and it's part of the theme of like, what's the worst part of your job? What's the worst part of, or the shittiest part? What's the worst part of Uber Eats? Like, what do you
Oh
absolutely
my God. The worst part of it's so everything. There's nothing good about it. Like, dude, I have like 3 delivery apps on my phone, and I have to turn them all on at the same time and just hope that I get something. And half the time it's like, it's the worst part is that the pay. The pay is shit. Like there's like a guarantee on it, which is nice out here because it's the whole Prop 22 thing in California. They have to pay minimum wage guaranteed if you're driving for an hour, but they fucking finagled it so it's only when you're delivering. Like if you're sitting like at a hot spot waiting, you could wait an hour, you don't get paid for that hour. And then they give you one, it's like, hey, here's a $3 delivery, jackass. It'll take you 5 minutes. You're never gonna hit the hour. But that, and out here as opposed to back home, because I drove Uber Eats back home too. Out here, it is every time that I have to go up into any kind of hills. If I see a delivery address and it's going to take me to a higher elevation, I know I'm not getting tipped, because that's where all the rich assholes live, and they're not going to tip me.
Isn't that funny how that works? Like middle class seems to like tip the most. I've worked in the service industry for many, like close to 20 years. And the higher end places, it's not that people wouldn't tip, they would tip like the bare minimum or just below.
Yeah.
And it'd be a big ticket item. So it'd be like, all right, that's kind of okay. But I get some of the biggest tips in my life in like middle class, like regular Joe bars.
Oh, all the time. Like that's like my favorite folks, and I think it's probably similar, and maybe it's the same for you too. As somebody who sits in a lower class position in our class system, I very much find that all of us tip much better than people that are high class, because we know, because we're doing the same shit. So like we're constantly dealing with the bad tips from people who clearly have money. And every time I'm delivering in like a not great neighborhood or some shit, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get tipped fine. These are probably gonna be super nice people. They'll probably meet me at my car and help me carry shit if it's a big order. It's just we're all out here. Like we're very much the people, like we're in this together, and they're like, no, fuck you. Like we're above you. We don't have to, like, literally here. They're literally above all of us, looking down on us.
Yeah, it's funny. Like
I got yelled at by a dude because I was up delivering up in his hills area, and I just like stopped because it was just a beautiful view. And he yelled at me like, you don't live here, you have to leave. And I'm like, dude, I just gave you food. You can't let me like enjoy this view for 2 seconds.
It's beautiful up here. Can I just drink it in and then go back to my hellhole of life?
I have to go back and be in that. Like, shut up. Let me enjoy this.
I slept in my car last night. What the fuck, man? You're gonna have one sliver of like of happiness. Oh, that's
yeah,
amazing.
I'm glad that you made me drive 20 minutes out of the way for your 2 boba teas.
Oh my God. Do you ever get asked, like, I feel like people all the time, once they find out I've done comedy or I'm doing comedy, or anything silly Billy related, people will come to me with like a joke, of like, hey, my friend's got this water bottle that smells really bad. You should tell a joke about that. And I'm like,
all the time. Like,
yeah, that's another thing that I hate.
That's a pretty good summary of like the type of joke that someone will bring you to. It's always just like, hey, this thing, maybe make that funny. And it's like, you can't do that. Like, if you made it funny first and came to me and were like, "Hey, do you want to use this?" Then sure. But like, you're asking me to do all the work on your shitty premise,
Yeah, I've got an idea like that right now that I've been working on for 6 months. I'm not going to take your shitty idea and make
right?
it.
Yeah. Like, do you want to see my notebook that is full of ideas that are range from better than that to far, far worse than that? I have my work cut out for me. I don't have time for your water bottle joke.
I'm kind of busy. Oh man, do you believe in ghosts at all? This is kind of a really off the topic
Oh
question.
man, this is gonna get me in trouble. This always gets me in trouble. You
Really?
are amazed how often this comes up in my life.
Really?
I'm gonna obviously share this when it releases, and my buddy Khalil will probably listen to this, and he's right now is already very excited for what's about to happen. I do not believe in ghosts, and I think people that do believe in ghosts are making the world a worse place.
That's great, man. I too like. Okay, sorry. I don't mean to step on your story. Go ahead,
No,
man.
no. If you go ahead, I want to hear your thoughts on ghosts before I get into the story, so I can kind of temper myself if I need to.
No, I'm like, okay, I don't know that there's not ghosts, but I also don't know that there are ghosts. I I don't know. A ghost has never come up to me. I'm not saying you didn't see a ghost. I'm just saying I've never seen a ghost. Where are the
See,
ghosts?
and that's much kinder than what I will say to people when they're like, "I've seen a ghost," because I'll just be like, "No, you haven't. You're a liar and you're wrong."
Yeah.
This is the thing. I don't mind ghost stories. I think ghost stories are fun. I was a technician for a haunted house for a couple years. And we used ghost stories in all of our promotions because everyone swears there was this ghost cat. And if anyone's listening right now, they're like, "God damn it, Anthony, why are you sitting there talking shit about ghost cat?" Because it doesn't exist. That's why I'm talking shit about it. The cat isn't real. No one has ever actually seen it. But there was like a kid once who was like on the landing getting ready to go into the house, and they mentioned a cat, and everyone freaked out like, "See, proof, ghost cat is real." I'm like, "Yeah, because kids are the smartest people in the world." I don't know if you can tell like how viscerally angry I get about ghosts. I think they're fun. I think ghost stories are very fun, and I love playing in the fun space of ghosts.
Uh-huh.
It very quickly crosses that line into a very real place for people, and that's where I'm like, I can't abide this anymore. I can't let you do this around me because it's getting weird and I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I go into this whole thing where like I'm not a scientist, but I have a vague understanding of the laws of thermodynamics. And I'm like, well, ghosts break that. So fuck off. They can't exist because the energy required for a ghost to exist constantly doesn't it breaks everything. If ghosts exist, then the world is falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a joke that I wrote. I'm not totally not going to do it justice because I haven't done it since like I wrote it. But I was watching a documentary about reincarnations, and the University of Virginia had done a study where more than like 15. It's a really long joke. University, and it's all these stats. University of Virginia did a study of kids between this age and that age have witnessed blah blah blah, and have said that they've been reincarnated or once blah blah once have been like had a different life, and it's really really long, and the payoff is the moral of the story is kids are liars.
Well, they are. Like I still have vivid memories of the times that I thought I saw ghosts as a kid. And I
Sure.
remember them perfectly. And like looking back on it as an adult, I'm like, you're a dumbass was the issue, is that you were too stupid to understand things.
There was this really scary. I was raised super religious.
I feel like that's a common theme among funny people.
Yeah, and since then, like complete like atheist at this point, or agnostic at least. So, there was this book that was super scary for like a little kid that was given to me, and it was like sin is everywhere, and sin was this like shadowy cartoon character with like a mask and a kind of a look to him. And I used to think that I would see him like hiding behind every corner because of, so if ghosts are real, they're cartoon characters in my head. But that's
Right.
what I thought that I saw as a kid. And I would have told you, like, I've seen sin before. I've seen the
I just
sinister.
love that you had like the religious version of there's a monster at the end of this book.
Yeah.
Like Grover. That is
I
wild.
mean,
I do you have that book still?
no, I wish I
Oh,
did.
I would
But
love to see that because it
yeah,
sounds wild and it sounds like
yeah,
something I would very much like to read. It's called Sin is Everywhere.
something like that.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
try to find it because that sounds fantastic.
the character was like, it had like a fedora, like a Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego type fedora, and like a trench coat, and maybe even like a twisty mustache coming out a little bit.
Was the personification of sin just like dudes at Comic Con? Was that just his
Yeah,
whole vibe?
Neo with a mustache.
Milady.
It's funny you make that correlation of like a lot of people, a lot of funny people grow up like have a religious upbringing. I just recently interviewed a comic who also worked at a haunted house. Tell me a
Oh,
little bit about
really?
yeah. Tell me about your experiences. He was like a character and would like sneak out and like scare people and
So that wasn't my job. I was a technician. So like I programmed a lot of props. I did a lot of the main reason I was brought in was sound design. So I did like a lot of our soundscapes and creating effects that like would trigger with props and stuff like that. But I did do there. We had a character called Blood Feast that was like it was a remote controlled character with a microphone that would play through it. So that was like kind of our in our intro area while you were waiting to go in. If you were like
yeah.
the next group up, the we had bits that we would do with like the person that was letting you walk in and Blood Feast. So like me and my buddy that Khalil that I was talking about, who was probably listening to the ghost thing and being like, "Oh, here he goes." Which, by the way, if I like really upset you listening to about the ghost thing, like I said, it's a fun thing. Just don't be a dick about it. Just don't be shitty about the ghost stuff, and it's fine. Movie. I just want to. I don't know why I was like, I should probably make sure the ghost crowd is okay with this.
Yeah. I don't want
But
to lose the
no,
ghost.
working in a haunted house is super cool, and it's one of the most unique experiences that I've ever had. And as someone who doesn't believe in ghosts, that doesn't mean that I don't get irrationally scared all the
Yeah,
time. And working in one of those places alone, it doesn't matter how much you know that shit's not going to come to life and attack you. For some reason, one of my best performing TikToks is me doing a video. I did my laundry at the haunted house too. So it was just me doing laundry in like June, but all the creepy shit is still out. And just me being scared while I was doing my laundry because I would just forget that's where I was and I'd walk out and there's fucking mannequins everywhere.
yeah,
So
yeah,
no, it's still a terrifying place to work. Like going in alone, I had to do my first year there. I don't know if you know anything about how haunted houses are built, but they're usually just big buildings, and then you make them into a maze that's impossible to traverse. So my first year there, even though I'd been through this house a few times as a guest, you don't know like how like where all the like the secret movement paths are. And you walk into one and then you're lost for like an hour. And there's no one in the building anywhere. And I'm just trying to fix a projector, man. And now I'm lost. And I finally find the room that the projector's in, and it's this dark theater with a bunch of like hooded figures and plague masks and shit. And there's one that kind of can move. And if there's power, it'll try to do it, even if it's not triggering. And somebody else apparently was in the building and flipped power on for that floor. So this thing just starts like twitching at me. And I'm like, nope, going home. I'm done. I'm done for the day. I'm done. No one told me this was going to happen. Fuck this place. I might quit. Like
yeah.
it is so wild how dumb our brains are.
I know,
They
man.
will just convince us in a room you've been in 100 times where nothing has ever happened. And be like, no, this is the day that one of
Yeah,
these comes to life and bites me.
yeah, yeah. For I don't know, maybe a month after watching Hereditary, I've been like, oh my god, there's gonna be a lady levitating, sawing her own head off, and behind every corner. She became the Sin is Everywhere character.
I will say, one of my favorite things about doing sound design for a haunted house is if you know how to fuck with sound effects or like anything, if you can manipulate sound, you can hide the dumbest jokes in a haunted house. Uh, we had one prop that when you triggered it, it was the Tim Allen like from Home Improvement, but we played it in reverse and stretched it, so it was like this garbled mess and sounded terrifying. And we had to
Yeah,
replace it because it was old. It didn't sound good anymore. So we
yeah.
replaced it with fuck, what's the song? It's the Powerline song from Goofy. The I forget what it's called. You know what I'm talking about?
What you're talking about, but
Yeah,
of course.
it's that song. But we stretched it to the point that it was like 30 minutes long and layered it and like did a bunch of weird pitch shifty stuff and played like 2 seconds of that mess. And it's like, there's Powerline. And there's like a Goofy movie plays when you walk through that room. And there's so many of those that I would hide in there. It was so much fun.
Totally, man. Yeah, you're like, wiener is another way to say hot dog, and then you switch that a little bit and like stretch it. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
It was like 90% of my job was trying to sneak in dumb shit.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. We're kind of at the point of the podcast right now where if you've got like a public service announcement or something that you want to get out there that we didn't cover, I'll totally pass the platform over to you. But if not, we'll keep moving, man. Just pass it right back.
I don't think that I have anything in particular to PSA about. It's one of those things where I'm like there was stuff that I was like, oh, if we talk about this today, then cool. But it feels weird to bring it up. Like I don't want to like segue into shit that I'm probably not qualified to talk about because obviously like comedy world, there's a lot of things we could talk about right now. But I think there are better voices that can tackle those things.
All right, man. Cool. I'm all right with that. Well, one of the reasons why I asked you to come on the show is because one of the segments like in your stand-up was you talked about pooping your pants, and I was like, I got to give this guy my podcast card because at the end of every show we end with a poop story. Can you tell me a little bit about a time like where you pooped your pants or poop related story?
I can. I did just realize I do want to share one thing about how we met though.
Yeah,
That is like it's what made me remember that this even happened. Because
okay.
also first, best booking I've ever gotten for anything. Like as soon as my set was done, hey, I do a podcast where we talk about shitting our pants. You have to do it. I was like, yeah, I'm in. But I remember like about to shit my pants during that set the whole time.
Yeah.
I was like, I just got off the road. I need to shit. Where is the bathroom?
Yeah.
So you gave me your card. I found the bathroom and I was looking at it. I'm like, I know this name. I
Yeah.
know Adam Copeland. I know that name. And I could not figure it out. So I finally Googled it. And you have the same fucking name as Edge, the wrestler. And I was like, I'm not even a huge wrestling fan. But for some reason, my brain was like, I remember who Adam Copeland is. It's like, I thought that was like the funniest thing. And like that made it stick in my brain.
Yeah.
Because I have the worst brain for remembering stuff. So
There.
like that was that moment of like, nope, you won't forget this one because one, it's a pooping your pants podcast, and two, he has the same name as Edge.
Yeah, when I was on dating apps several years ago, I people would be like, you are, what's your name again? Like, I guess they would like Google me for, I don't know, obvious reasons, but I'm
Want to make
like,
sure you're not a criminal. That's you have to.
Yeah. You're not a red dot on the map, are you? But yeah, they would be like, you're this guy, or like that would come up often with that too. I'm like, no, I got this.
The problem is that you look just enough like you could be Edge in disguise.
Yeah,
Like if Edge didn't want people to recognize him, he would look like you.
Edge just started eating nothing but fast food, and then lost his beautiful, luxurious hair and grew a beard.
Well, yeah, it's like when John Cusack goes out to events and stuff, and he just wears like a hat and glasses. Like Edge would just throw on a bald cap and head out.
Yeah. I totally see that. Like, I'm just an average guy. I'm not the Edge.
But
Yeah.
I guess we should talk about this pooping story, shouldn't we?
Let's get into
So
okay.
there's more than one. Like I wasn't in my set. I wasn't kidding when I said like I wish I was kidding about that being a one-time thing. Like there's a couple. Do you want me to tell the one from the stand-up set?
Whatever you want, man.
Oh
Whatever you
man,
want.
it's a tough. I really should have asked you about this in advance.
No, tell them both if you want. We got plenty of time.
Both. Like there's only two. So I'll start with the simple one.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the one that has more moral consequences. So the one that I open things up with in my stand-up is it's literally just there. So here's a little PSA thing that I can do that works into my poop story. So I had to spend a few days in a mental health facility a few years ago.
Hey, Anthony, just a second, dude. You froze up on me.
My brain all. No.
Hey, are you still with me? Hang tight for just a second, buddy. Anthony. Oh man, hold on a second, buddy. I think I'm losing you. This might be my internet too. Let me just double check. You still there, buddy? Hey man. Buddy. I think I'm losing you.
Oh no. Oh, are we back? Are we back?
You're starting to robotically come back slowly. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3.
You back? Do you have me back?
Hold on just a second. You still there? You're frozen on your screen.
But I don't even know like what point it cut out, but I was like, I mentioned mental health and he shut it down. He was like, no, it's not doing this.
Not doing this. No way, not on my podcast. All right, sorry, man. We got you back.
So what did I say before it cut off?
That's literally it. You were like, okay, so I was checked into
so it was just
it was literally that, like very comically timed.
So I was trying to offline.
Oh my God. Oh my God, it happened again, dude.
The thing I had to switch to a hotspot and then someone tried to call me and it doesn't like when that happens, but I told them not to do that again. So we should get through this poop story just fine.
Okay, man.
Okay. So just want me to pick it back up from there then?
Yeah.
All right. After all that, so I had to check myself into a mental health facility for a few days, which is my little PSA. If you need to do that, do it. It's very good. It fucking saved my life. So there's a lot of stigma around that. And I don't know why, because it was literally just, it was 4 days in a place where I got to talk to other people that were dealing with the same shit. And we got to kind of help each other through that, just to the point that we were able to like go back out and be people. And then continuing that recovery after that. It was incredible. But part of that was that I got put on antidepressants for a little while. And they tell you, like, everyone knows like the basic symptoms of antidepressants because they're terrifying. Like every commercial for antidepressants, it's like, hey, these might make it worse. And like those are the ones everyone remembers, like, hey, you might experience worse depression and increased suicidal thoughts and all that shit. At no point did any doctors be like, hey, sometimes you just might shit your pants. Because that's what happened. Like I was just out, I was smoking a cigarette. It was like 3 p.m. and I went out, I was smoking a cigarette, and I just felt my asshole relax and just empty. And I was like, what? Just like, I did nothing. Like it was so fast. It just happened. And I was just standing there and my roommate came out and just saw me and she's like, are you okay? I'm like, I just shit myself and I don't know why. Which is a wild thing to yell at somebody. Like she just thought I was smoking and she comes out and finds out that my body is just doing stuff on its own and I have no control over it. So that's the first one. That's like, that is the one that I opened this bit with. I don't remember if I did like my very first memory of shitting myself. I don't know if I did that in Santa Fe or not, but it was in 2nd grade. And this is the one that has some moral implications. So it was in 2nd grade. I had to go to the bathroom. I was fucking running down the hall. I didn't make it. I did not make it. I was like halfway there. Like I could see it and I didn't make it and I shit my pants and I just froze in the hallway. Like I didn't know what to do. And for some reason, my little 2nd grade brain, we've already established kids are stupid. So like, you can't blame me for this. That's been well established in this podcast. Kids are dumb. I just shook it out of my pant leg onto the floor. Which didn't help the situation. Like I still remember very clearly, like looking at it and then panicking, like, oh no, like it's there now. And like, so I ran to the bathroom and I was like, I'm gonna clean myself up. see if there's any more poop that needs to happen, and then I will come clean this up.
Yeah.
And in the stand-up bit that I tell this in, I say that I came back and it was gone. And the tag is, have you ever owed a janitor a favor?
Yeah.
And I go into a bit with that. The reality of this situation is that I came back and it was not gone. It was still there, along with a couple of my classmates who were pointing at it and seeing it. And then they saw me come out of the bathroom and they're like, did you do that?
Yeah. Putting two and two together.
I didn't think, I don't remember who asked me this, but someone like asked me like, oh, do you remember the first lie that you told? And this immediately popped into my head. I was like, yes, I do. Very clear memory of like the first time that I know that I lied on purpose. And I said no. And it could have stopped there. I had just come out of the bathroom. I could have just left it at no. I did mine in there. Or that's whoever did this clearly wasn't in there. But instead I blamed it on someone else. As if I had seen it and done nothing. Like, so I blamed it on someone else. And the moral implication here is that like that person that I blamed it on kind of went through school being the weird smelly kid. Now to before everyone comes after me, like I ruined some kid's life, I and my friends were his friends when this happened. That makes it seem worse, like I blamed it on my friend. But like we continued to be friends all through high school. He is a perfectly normal adjusted human being now. It like eventually it kind of petered off and it was like, maybe you were just kind of a weird kid. But like there was, when I first started writing that bit, I had to like kind of reevaluate it. And like, did I actually like really affect someone's life with this tiny lie that I took one step too far for no reason?
Yeah, what's the butterfly effect if you go backwards? And
right,
like,
if I go back and change that, I bet what happens is that I'm like a manager of a Best Buy or something and have like a happy family and I'm financially secure and he's like a 5-star chef somewhere and we're best friends and maybe we have a boat. I don't know.
You take out on the weekends, but your relationship is so thick that it's like we can both afford this, but we can neither individually afford this boat, but we share it together.
But like you know, like because we're like we would never hurt each other. So we'll get this boat.
I can only do this with one specific person.
Yeah,
that guy.
But I told the poop lie, and now all my boat dreams are gone.
Oh my God, that's awesome, man.
And like there's so many more. Like, dude, I can rapid fire a couple if you want to hear a couple more poop stories. Okay, so these are real rapid fire. One time I shit my pants in a Kohl's, and I was very, like, of all the places I could have shit my pants, very cool that it was in a Kohl's because they have dressing rooms. So I did not leave the shitty underwear in this Kohl's. I did, however, steal some underwear to change into.
That's one of those like moral things where it's like, would you steal bread to feed your family?
Right. Would you steal underwear to clean your ass? I think is a fair. I'll be the Jean Valjean of shitting your pants.
Yeah, the store manager. Just get out of here.
Because I'm not living in these shitty undies one day more. It ain't happening. But okay, moving on to the next poop story. It was my friend's birthday. I'm proud of this one. Like, it's very rare that you shit your pants and are like, fucking, I'm gonna tell everybody because this is so cool. We were doing tequila shots, and I don't know what it was about like the movement of like throwing the head back, released a little bit down south. It just went. But I caught it. I say caught it like I caught it with my ass. And I immediately ran inside, went to the bathroom, and I was like, oh no, like I don't have other stuff with me. This is gonna be miserable. I caught it in such a way that it took me a while to clean up. Not a fucking bit of it got on any of my clothes. My ass got all of it. It was my ass was on top of damage control that day. So I want to end it on a positive shit your pants story. Like they're not all bad. Sometimes you can shit your pants and it can be a real good day.
Yeah.
And I told everyone at that party. Like I ran out and I was like, guys, you have to listen. I just shit my pants, didn't get any of it in my underwear. And people are like, why are you telling people this? I'm like, because it's impressive. As someone who's had this problem, I'm getting better at it. I don't know if you want to be getting better at shitting your pants, but if you are doing it regularly, it's at least something that's helpful.
So good.
So yeah, those are my. Do you have a shitting your pants story that I get to hear, or is this? Do I just share mine?
Yeah, I've told it on the podcast several times, but so I'll keep it brief because people are interested. I was newly dating this person, and they invited me over to their house, and I had already made the decision of like, I'm not gonna see this person anymore. We should just cut it off before it gets serious. And then we worked close in proximity. She came over and it was like, I got stuff for breakfast. I have this, I have that. I hope you come over. I've got beers. We woke up in the morning. My stomach was like audibly making noises, and I ate breakfast really quick, and had coffee and ran out, but I didn't make it in time, so I had to like shit where like right out in the middle of an apartment complex, like just like I was shitting as I was like going down the stairs, pretty
Oh,
much. And I like pull my pants down and just go right out in the lawn. It was pretty gruesome. All she had to do was like open the door and say like, "Hey, you forgot your keys," or something. Like, I don't know, like you forgot to, and she would have seen me just like pulling my clothes off, like just
so you just
diarrhea.
went for it.
Yeah, yeah.
That is a boldness that, like, rarely does the shit your pants story involve continuing to shit without the pants on. Like,
Yeah.
that's impressive.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, I didn't make it out of the woods in time. Like it hit clothing. Like it was
Oh
projectile.
yeah.
It was bad. Yeah.
We've all been there. Everyone's been there where you find yourself shitting on your ex's lawn.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was the other like added like, oh God, I'm never gonna talk to this person again. So I don't want to leave. Like she can be like, oh yeah, the guy that shit on my lawn, yeah, he's a real piece of shit. And he shit like he
Yeah,
shit
like
the
that's
bed.
because it seems malicious at that point.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
like had this happened like the date before you broke up, it would just
Yeah.
be like she wouldn't even associate it with you. It would be like,
Yeah.
oh, there was just someone shit all over like my apartment complex yard or whatever. But the fact that like it happens when that ends, like
Yeah.
that's a malicious act. You probably are on a list somewhere.
I know. A neighbor came and knocked after that. I don't know. That things could have gone really bad. I never doubled back on it. Anthony, thank you so much for doing the podcast, man.
Dude,
You
thank
crushed
you.
it.
This was so much fun. Thank you for
Yeah,
having
man.
me.
I'd love to have you back on again if you're up for it.
For sure. Yeah, I'll let me get out and shit my pants a few more times. And when I have a good one, I'll call you up.
I like it, man. Play us out, Shity ukulele.